You've been on Google for 40 minutes. 3 browser tabs open with different schedule templates, each one called something like Most Popular or Best for Kids. Your co-parent sent a different option last week.
If you're listening, something at home has shifted. Maybe recently, maybe a long time ago. Welcome, I'm Remy. This is Co-Parent Space, the calm space for parents and children living between two homes. What you'll hear is grounded in attachment science and clinical research. It isn't therapy, and it isn't medical or legal advice. If you or your child are struggling, please talk to someone who can help in person. This is a quiet place to think. It doesn't take sides. Here's today's piece.
Wednesday night. The kids are asleep. You've been on Google for 40 minutes. 3 browser tabs open with different schedule templates, each one called something like Most Popular or Best for Kids. Your co-parent sent a different option last week. Your lawyer mentioned a 4th one. None of them feel right, and you can't quite say why. The reason none of them feel right is that they're answering the wrong question. They're answering what schedules exist. Your actual question is what schedule will work for my specific child. Those are different questions. Today's episode is about the second one. You're not actually choosing for yourself. The most useful thing to do first is close the tabs. Step back from the templates. The starting point isn't what schedule do I want or what schedule does my co-parent want. It's what does my child's nervous system need at this age, and how do we build something that gives them that?
Start with your youngest child's age. The youngest child's developmental needs set the floor for the whole sibling group. This is called the Sibling Solidarity Standard. If you have a 4-year-old and an 11-year-old, the schedule is built around the 4-year-old's needs. The 11-year-old accepts the constraint. The 4-year-old doesn't have to stretch to accommodate the older sibling's preferences. There are exceptions to this for teenagers and for special needs. Most families don't need them. 2. Layer in school and work. A schedule that works on paper but conflicts with school pickups, after-school activities, or one parent's work shifts isn't workable. List the practical constraints honestly. Build the schedule around them. The schedule that requires a parent to ignore Wednesday meeting they can't move is the schedule that fails in week 3. 3. Identify the joy windows for each parent. Which moments of the week are anchored to which parent? Be specific. Bedtime on Sundays through Tuesdays at mom's house. Breakfast on Saturdays at dad's. The drive to football on Wednesday afternoon, alternating. Joy windows are deliberate, not accidental.
4. Map out the relay points. Where do transitions happen? School-based when possible. Brief and friendly when face-to-face. The Sunday evening transition is harder than the Friday afternoon one for most kids. Plan accordingly. 5. Build in review points. Annually for younger children. Biannually for preteens. The schedule that's right for a 5-year-old will be wrong for a 7-year-old. Plan for it. A schedule that's set in stone is a schedule that fits a child for an average of 18 months. 6. Then talk to your co-parent. Bring the framework. Listen to theirs. The conversation goes differently when both of you have a clear sense of what your child needs separately before you start the back and forth on practical structure. What fair actually means. A common worry in this conversation is fairness. Is it fair that my co-parent gets more nights? Is it fair that I'm the one doing bedtimes? Is the 50-50 split actually equal? Fair in this context doesn't mean equal. Fair means right for the child.
The schedule that gives you and your co-parent exactly 50-50, but is developmentally wrong for a 2-year-old, isn't fair to the 2-year-old. The schedule that gives you 60% of nights, but lets your child build a stable life across both homes, is fair. The schedule that's mathematically symmetric, but leaves your 12-year-old unable to keep up with school, is not fair. This is the hardest reframe in scheduling. It asks you to step back from your own grief about the time you don't have, your own anger at the situation, your own sense of what feels right to you. None of those feelings are wrong. They're real. They just don't belong in the schedule decision. They belong in your own life, in your own conversations with people who can hold them with you. The schedule belongs to your child. The schedule isn't a contract between you and your co-parent. It's a structure you build for the years your child still needs you to. Choose carefully, review honestly, adjust as they grow. This is one of the most lasting things you and your co-parent will build together, even when it doesn't feel like you're building anything together at all.
This is a hard reframe. The mental real estate the schedule question takes up is enormous. It feels personal. It feels like grief. It feels like trading time with someone you love for time with your work, your house, your sleep. All of those feelings are real. They're also not the schedule's job to settle. The schedule isn't really about you and your co-parent. The schedule is responding to a third person, your child. The right schedule will sometimes feel uncomfortable to you. It will sometimes feel uncomfortable to your co-parent. If it works for your child, that's the schedule. The good part of this reframe, most of the time, what's right for the child is also workable for the parents. There are patterns that hold up across years of clinical observation, a few rules that almost always apply, a handful of structures that almost always work. None of them are templates you'll find in the first 3 search results. What changes by age? The first thing to know: schedule logic changes substantially as your child grows. The schedule that was right for your 18-month-old will be wrong for your 8-year-old. The schedule that's right for your 8-year-old will feel suffocating to your 13-year-old. A good co-parenting plan builds in regular review points where the schedule shifts as the child grows. Ages 0 to 2. Frequent contact, short durations. At this age, your child has no concept of time. A week away from a primary caregiver feels like an eternity. Schedules that go more than 72 hours without seeing either parent disrupt the developing secure base. The default pattern at this age is something like 2-2-3, or daily contact with a primary anchor home and brief joy windows at your co-parents. Week on, week off is clinically inappropriate for an under 2. Ages 3 to 5. A predictable rhythm matters more than maximum frequency. Your child is starting to understand patterns. They can hold, "I'm at dad's tonight, then mom's tomorrow," in their head. The default at this age is something like 2-2-5-5, or a 2-2-3 transitioning toward longer settles. The transition itself is the highest anxiety moment, so schedules that minimize face-to-face handovers, using preschool or daycare as the relay point, tend to work better. Ages 6 to 9. Longer settle stretches start to matter. School week stability becomes the priority. Your child has homework, friends, after-school activities. They need enough time at each home to settle into a rhythm before moving again. The 2-2-3 schedule starts to feel disruptive at the upper end of this range. Most families move toward 3-4-4-3, or week on, week off, with a midweek joy window. Ages 10 to 13. Week-long stability is the baseline. Your preteen has a packed week. Friend group at school, activities that span days, school projects that need to live somewhere consistent. Moving every 2 days makes it almost impossible to focus on anything substantial. Most families at this stage settle into week on, week off, with a regular midweek dinner with the off-duty parent. Ages 14 to 17. The schedule becomes consultative, then largely the teen's call. By 14, your teen has their own life and is increasingly the architect of their own time.
Friend groups, jobs, dating, school workload all move them between homes in patterns that don't match a calendar template. The schedule shifts from prescriptive to advisory. Both parents stay present and available. The teen comes when they come. If your child sits near a stage boundary, somewhere between two patterns, that's normal. Most families review the schedule a year or so before each transition and start adjusting in advance. The 4 main patterns. Underneath the variation, 4 schedule patterns cover almost every functional family. Knowing them by name makes the conversation with your co-parent easier.
The 2-2-3. 2 days at parent A, 2 days at parent B, 3 days back at parent A. Then it flips the next week. Time split 50-50. Movement every 2 to 3 days. Best for ages 0 to 7 with a frequent contact need. Hardest part? Lots of transitions, which can be exhausting for parents and harder for kids who struggle with handovers. The 3-4-4-3. 3 days at parent A, 4 at parent B, 4 at A, 3 at B. Time split 50-50. Movement every 3 to 4 days. Best for ages 6 to 10, where longer settles matter, but a full week feels too long. Hardest part? The rotation isn't intuitive without a calendar. Kids and adults need a visible chart so no one has to remember which week it is. Week on, week off. 1 full week at parent A, 1 full week at parent B. Time split 50-50. Movement once a week, usually on a Friday or Sunday. Best for ages 9 and up. Hardest part? The off-duty parent goes a full week without seeing their child, which is the hardest part of co-parenting at any age. A regular midweek dinner is almost always built in to soften this.
Hybrid patterns. Most real families don't use the textbook versions. They use a base pattern, often week on, week off, plus a midweek dinner with the off-duty parent, or a base 3-4-4-3 plus a weekend overnight, or something built around the kids' activities and the parents' work shifts. The hybrid patterns are usually the most workable in practice because they bend around real life rather than asking real life to bend around them. These 4 patterns aren't the only options. They're the ones that hold up across the most family configurations. Your specific situation might call for something else. The principles for evaluating any pattern are below. Joy windows. A schedule is more than the residence rotation. The most useful concept to understand is the joy window. A joy window is a high-quality presence moment, repeated reliably enough that your child can count on it. Wednesday dinner, Saturday morning pancakes, the bedtime story, the walk to school on Tuesday morning, the Sunday afternoon at the playground.
Joy windows are the moments your child knows are coming, the moments that anchor the week emotionally. Children don't experience time the way adults do. They don't add up nights and divide. They feel presence in moments that recur. Daddy reads to me on Wednesday. Mom makes pancakes on Saturday. The schedule is held together, in the child's mind, by these recurring anchors. When you're choosing a schedule, you're not just choosing where your child sleeps. You're choosing which joy windows each parent gets to anchor. A parent who has 50% of nights but no joy windows has a quantitatively equal but qualitatively empty schedule. A parent who has 30% of nights but holds the bedtime ritual and the Saturday morning stretch has a smaller schedule that's anchored in the child's experience. This matters more than it sounds. Other episodes in this library go deeper on joy windows. For now, the principle: schedules are evaluated on presence, not just on percentage. The relay. The other thing to think about as you build the schedule: where transitions happen. Every time your child moves between homes, there's a moment of transition. The transition is often the hardest part of the schedule for everyone, especially young children. Where it happens shapes how it feels. The principle: where possible, route transitions through neutral spaces: school,
daycare. The Saturday morning class. This is sometimes called the school relay. Parent A takes the child to school in the morning. Parent B picks them up in the afternoon. The child moves between homes without either parent having to manage a face-to-face goodbye. The transition becomes invisible. When that's not possible, structure the face-to-face transitions to be brief and friendly. The driveway moment isn't the time for substantial conversation between co-parents. The transition belongs to the child. Adult coordination conversations happen elsewhere, ideally not in the child's hearing. How to actually choose. The practical sequence.
That's today's piece. If it helped, the full written version, and more like it, are at coparentspace.com. Be gentle with yourself. I'll be here next time.